Time to work on the soles of these shoes. As you can see, they're very, very rough. I've pulled back the original rubber. I've already done it, but I'm just showing you how I did it. As if you get a little start going, you can roll back with your tool so as to not break the rubber as you're going along. Once you've got it off, I've got a band sander here, and I'm just cleaning off any excess glue and dirt and build up that may have been underneath those rubbers on the real sole of the shoe, which is the lowers. And I'm not doing too much there, but I'm just cleaning it up so that I've got a perfect surface onto which I can glue the next new one. There you can have a look how nice and clean it looks. Taking the dust off. Here you can see the black, it's not a rubber, it's I guess it's a rubber as well. It's a very hard rubber, but it's got one nail in it. And it's worn so much so that it wobbles, so it's sort of got a bump on it, ever so slightly. So I'm giving that a sand down as well with the sanding machine. Now if you don't have one of these sanders, you can take an orbital and put it in a vise and switch it to the permanently on position. Or you can always manage to do some kind of sanding with what you find. Someone's tool shop usually has one of these in them. If you go to any old guy, you'll find they usually have one of these great band sanders. Just giving that a quick clean up as well, just more to make it flat than anything. And I'll never get it back to perfect, but as you can see now it doesn't wobble anymore. Taking the old sole that I pulled off, I'm using it as a template to cut my new soles onto the Topi rubber, using a marker pen there to draw around, flipping it to the other side so that you're getting the perfect opposite and you're making a pair. I've already cut mine out from this wonderful Topi grip. I don't know what you even call it. It's a tile that you buy already made, and you can cut out your pieces onto that. It's a very professional finish, and the grip will last you for so long. It's wonderful. So I'm just joining that in at the base of the sole there, where I've got a nice clean line, and making sure, just having a look to see if it's not too small. My problem would be if it would be too small, so a little bit too big is better. Here's another cute tool. Once again, if you don't have these tools, you can always manage to do it with a sander or just a sandpaper. But this is a little renovator tool. Just carefully, very carefully, watch your hands. Just beveling an edge on that now, so that there's no sharp edges left on this Topi sole, this rubber sole. Now, if you leave that edge clean and square that I'm touching there, you can quite easily cut yourself or cut somebody else with the sharp edge of that. So it's really important to have this soft bevel. Here's another way of doing it on the band sander once again. You could have a piece of sandpaper on the table on the bench and just be rubbing it with your hand. So now with my contact adhesive, which is we use for glue and for shoes especially, sorry, not for glue, for shoes, you're putting that on generously on both surfaces. I'm going to get one finger messy. It doesn't matter. It's really handy to feather it out to the edges there, making sure the extremities get really wet. So no bits are missing, especially the extremities, the external section. So once that's done, I'm going to put it down and start the same on the new sole that we're going to put on. Once again, making sure you're really hitting those extremities. I put it quite generously because it's not a problem to put too much. It is a problem to put too little. So once I've done that, I'm going to set it down and let it dry, completely dry, until you think to yourself, oh dear, what a problem, I've messed it up, it's too dry. But no, that's what this glue wants. It's contact adhesive. If you touch it straight away after you've put it on, it will still be tacky. See, that's a little tacky still there. But I'm going to set it aside for a good 10 minutes and for it to dry. This is the easy way just to peel the glue off. You don't need any solvents or anything. I've only dirtied one finger, and you can use your thumb just to roll it right off like that. No trouble at all. So I've gone away until such a point as this is so dry you wouldn't believe that it was any good to you anymore. I'm touching it, it's like it's completely gone off. Well, it hasn't, because it has this effect. Now make sure you've got the right sole. Very important, don't mix them up. They look very similar. Make sure you've got the correct one for the correct shoe. Now here you have to work very precisely because you cannot do this twice. Make sure you line up as nicely as you can. Ease it down, feeling on both sides to make sure you're lining it up on both the left and the right side. And just push through with your thumbs once you're sure and confident you've got it in a good line up. Once again, squeeze down on the sides where we really want to make the best contact. And do that with both of them straight away. So once again, lining up very tidily your edges, holding it in place with your thumb, squeezing the sides down, make sure you're lining up as perfect, as best as you can possibly do. You know, you're saving yourself a lot of money. Taking this to the cobbler is an expensive process. You can do this at home. It doesn't require a certificate. Squeeze it down with your hands. Yes. And now what you're going to do is just bash it with something, because this glue responds to impact. Don't ask me how, I'm not a scientist. I just have heard that it responds to bashing. And you'll see cobblers doing this a lot. So if you may have one of these knocking around in your garage and never knew what it was, or you've seen one around, don't throw it out as some useless object. This is an incredible thing. It's called a cobbler's last, and as you can see, it's got different shoe size feet on it. So I'm starting with this big one here, and then later on I went to the smaller one. I hammered this very thoroughly for several minutes, both shoes and on both sizes. Looking at this, there's a little bit of a lip there, and it's sharp, and it needs to be attended to. So I'm going to tidy up the rest of the sole now that it's glued on. But now that I've got my right shaping, I'm going to knock off more of the sharp edges now that I've got everything in its position. Especially here, you know, maybe the dancer will pick that up with their hand, their foot in their hand, as dancers often do. They could even slice their finger there if you're not careful. So you've got to really smooth down those edges on all sides. Being careful not to touch your shoe itself, because you wouldn't want to bring a mark to your shoe. Just sort of skim over that until you've got a nice bevel on that edge. Look at this. I've made it too big. Well, I'd rather it be too big than too small, let me tell you. So I've got a big overhang there. I'm going to cut it off with some strong scissors just to get back to the basic shoe shape. Really roughly, it doesn't matter because I'm going to take to it and also sand that back. And you can be really nice and artistic and sculpt this end until you've got a really lovely shape. So just finishing off, I'm going to put some pegs to really hold that toe together. The toe is the most vulnerable area for the dancers. Are often scuffing the toe, and if anything starts to lift, this is where it'll lift first. So you really want that pressure on that toe section. And I found a little area that hasn't glued together properly here, so no troubles. I'm going to actually open it up as much as I can without removing the sole. And I'm going to insert some glue in there. I really want it to go very deeply into the crack, so I'm using a pin, a dressmaking pin, and pushing it in there as far as I can and being quite generous with it. So if you've got a little bit too much, doesn't matter. I'm going to squeeze it together as though closed, so that you're really sure that that's hitting all the marks internally. And anything that's left over, just wipe it off with some Terps or some solvent so that it's not going to make a big mark on the outside. Now I'm actually going to lift it apart once more. Now sometimes if it doesn't want to stay apart, you can actually insert something like the end of the scissors or something that will maintain it open. It's important that it maintains open because remember it has to dry. When it's dry, 10 minutes later, squeezing it closed again, just with my fingertips this time and holding it firmly, it's never coming open again. All tight and tidy. Look at that, it's not even moving. Fantastic. Taking my pegs off, they've been on there for a little while, maybe 10 minutes, and everything's just so tight now, it's great. This sole is not going to move. You would have a lot of trouble removing this sole right now.